Princess Clara was born on the planet Viridia, a world of tall crystal towers, glowing skies and cities that stretched into the clouds. From the moment she entered the world, her parents noticed that something was different. Clara could not see and her legs were weak. While other children her age ran, climbed and played freely, she struggled to take steps and could only rely on assistance. Her parents, the king and queen, cared for her deeply, but even they could not fully protect her from the reactions of others. The royal court, the palace staff and visiting aliens all seemed unsure of how to treat her. Many avoided her completely, thinking that she was too fragile to interact with or too helpless to contribute in any meaningful way. The palace was enormous, a labyrinth of shiny corridors, wide halls and tall windows that reflected the twin suns of the planet. It was beautiful, but to Clara, it often felt like a prison. She could hear the echoes of servants' footsteps, the hum of energy flowing through the crystal walls, and the occasional laughter of her siblings playing in other rooms. Yet, despite all this activity, Clara felt a deep, persistent loneliness. She longed for someone who would see her for who she truly was, not just for her disabilities. She longed for friendship, understanding, and the chance to prove herself. Clara spent much of her early childhood learning to navigate her limited world. Her tutors taught her to read and memorize information about the planet, the history of her people, and the workings of alien technology. They tried to make her feel capable, but the constant reminders of what she could not do, like walk long distances or see the vibrant colors of the skies, always weighed heavily on her. She often overheard whispers from visiting dignitaries. "The princess is sweet but she is weak," one would say. "It is a shame she cannot see. Such potential wasted." Clara did not like these words, but she could not respond. Her voice might be kind, but it could not always change how others saw her. Her parents, while loving, were constantly busy with royal duties. They attended meetings, discussed interplanetary trade, and planned events that shaped the future of their world. They loved Clara and supported her, but the palace staff, who followed their instructions, were often impatient. They guided her every step, sometimes without asking, sometimes in ways that made her feel more like an object than a person. Clara hated the feeling of being treated as fragile, as though she could break if touched too hard or asked to move too quickly. Inside, she felt strong, intelligent, and full of curiosity about the world around her. But her body, her blindness, and her weak leg made it difficult to show others who she truly was. The other alien children in the palace compound avoided her. They ran and played games she could not participate in. They climbed walls, floated across open spaces with anti-gravity boots, and explored the tallest towers, all things Clara could not do. Sometimes she would listen to their laughter and imagine herself joining them, running, climbing, and playing freely. She dreamed of exploring the palace corridors, walking down the crystal staircases without help, and feeling the wind against her face. These dreams were both comforting and painful because they reminded her of what she could not do, and of the isolation she felt. Yet Clara had an inner resilience that few noticed. She was curious about everything: the hum of energy through the palace walls, the soft vibrations of the floors as people walked, the echo of voices in the hallways. She learned to identify people by the way they moved, by the tone of their voice, and by the subtle sounds of their breathing. She knew when the servants were whispering about her, when her siblings were planning mischief, and when visitors were skeptical of her abilities. Clara's mind was sharp and alert, and she compensated for what she could not see with acute awareness of sound, touch, and intuition. Despite her awareness, the loneliness remained. She longed for someone to treat her like a normal being, to engage with her not out of pity, but as an equal. She wanted to share her thoughts, to explore ideas, and to be respected for her mind rather than judged for her disabilities. Each day, she listened to the footsteps in the halls, wondering if anyone would ever approach her not as a fragile princess, but as a person with curiosity, intelligence, and the capacity for greatness. This hope was small but persistent, growing quietly in her heart, waiting for the moment when someone might finally see her worth. The palace staff tried to protect her from danger, but their efforts often highlighted her limitations instead. They insisted on holding her hand as she moved through hallways, placing her in special chairs, and guiding her along paths where she might stumble. While their intentions were meant to keep her safe, Clara often felt infantilized. She wanted to try things on her own, even if it meant risking small mistakes. She wanted to explore the gardens outside the palace walls, to touch the alien flora, and to feel the sun on her face without fear. These small desires were considered too risky by the staff, and she was often denied. Clara's tutors also contributed to her frustration. They praised her intelligence, her memory, and her understanding of complex topics, Yet their lessons were always structured to keep her seated, contained, and limited. "You must be careful," they said. "Do not strain yourself." Clara understood their concern, but she longed to stretch beyond their limitations. She wanted to navigate spaces independently, learn through experience, and feel capable in her actions. The constraints, though meant for her safety, felt like invisible chains around her mind and spirit. In her private chambers, Clara developed her own methods of learning and exploration. She memorized the layout of the palace through sound and touch. She could recognize the feel of each corridor, the echo patterns of rooms, and even the subtle shifts in air as doors opened and closed. She experimented with her walking, sometimes using a cane or support, sometimes moving slowly on her own. Each success gave her a small sense of freedom, and each failure reminded her of the patience required to grow stronger. Even in isolation, she nurtured hope that one day, someone would treat her as capable, worthy, and whole. The twin moons of Viridia rose each evening, casting soft silvery light into Clara's chamber. She would sit by the window, feeling the gentle vibrations of the palace floor beneath her, and imagine distant lands, other cultures, and possibilities she had never yet experienced. She dreamed of a world where her disabilities did not define her, where curiosity and intelligence mattered more than weakness, and where companionship was based on respect rather than pity. Each night, these dreams comforted her, filling her with resilience and a quiet determination that perhaps, one day, someone would truly see her. Clara's parents, though busy, tried to show their love. They visited her chambers, brought her gifts, and asked about her day. Yet even their love could not replace the need for companionship and recognition from peers and equals. She wanted someone who would listen to her ideas, challenge her thinking, and value her abilities. She wanted a friend, a mentor, or a companion who could see her potential and treat her as more than a fragile princess. The absence of this recognition weighed heavily on her, yet the hope persisted quietly within her heart. The palace itself, though beautiful, often reminded Clara of her isolation. Its vast halls echoed with footsteps of those who ignored her presence. The crystal walls reflected light in ways she could not see, making it seem as though the world outside was vibrant and unreachable. She could hear music, conversation, and laughter, but it often emphasized how distant she was from the lives others led. Even the youngest visitors treated her cautiously, unsure of how to interact with a princess who was blind and disabled. This separation reinforced her loneliness, but also strengthened her resolve to be recognized for her mind and heart rather than judged for her body. Every day, Clara practiced patience and perseverance. She learned to navigate small sections of the palace independently, memorizing doorways, steps, and objects along the way. She experimented with movement, often stumbling but always recovering. Each successful step reinforced a sense of personal achievement. She began to recognize that, while her body had limitations, her mind and determination could overcome many obstacles. This quiet strength became her secret, a part of her identity that no one else in the palace truly saw or understood. Clara's hope persisted, waiting for the arrival of someone who could see beyond her physical limitations. She imagined meeting someone who would treat her as an equal, who would value her intelligence, and who would not see her as fragile. This hope was not naive. It was grounded in the understanding that trust, patience, and respect were rare but possible. She longed for the day when her world would expand beyond the palace walls and the judgments of others. That day, she hoped, would bring a human, or any being, who could see her worth, guide her gently, and allow her to flourish fully. Though lonely and misunderstood, Clara's spirit remained unbroken. She carried curiosity, intelligence, and a desire for independence that no palace rules, whispering courtiers, or physical limitation could suppress. She dreamed of a life where her abilities mattered, her choices were respected, and her companionship was earned through genuine connection rather than pity. Each day she practiced, learned, and hoped, her heart quietly preparing for the arrival of someone who would recognize her value. Henry's ship descended from the violet skies of Viridia, its smooth hull glinting in the light of the twin suns. He had traveled across many star systems, visiting countless worlds, but Viridia held a unique charm. Its tall crystal towers reflected the light in dazzling patterns, and the floating walkways above the city shimmered like threads of silver in the sun. Henry felt a thrill of curiosity and quiet excitement. He was a human explorer, patient and careful, and he had learned over the years that every new world required observation, understanding, and respect. Unlike many visitors to alien planets who sought to dominate or exploit, Henry came with the intent to learn and connect, not to control. As he entered the palace, the grandeur of Viridia's rulers became immediately apparent. The halls were wide and polished, the ceilings tall and intricate, and energy flowed in soft currents through the walls, humming beneath his feet. Alien courtiers and servants moved with grace and precision, their gestures refined and measured. Henry observed carefully, taking note of their movements, the sound of their voices, and the patterns of activity around him. It was a place of elegance and strict order, and he understood that anyone unfamiliar with its rules could easily feel lost. It was in this environment that he first became aware of Princess Clara. He heard the soft, careful steps of someone moving through the corridor, a sound distinct from the confident strides of the palace staff. There was a pause in the general hum of activity, a presence that felt quieter but purposeful. Henry's attention was drawn naturally. Many visitors would have overlooked such a subtle presence, but Henry had learned to notice the small signals, the nuances in sound, movement, and energy that revealed the character of those around him. Clara's presence suggested someone cautious yet determined, someone who had learned to navigate the world on her own terms despite limitations that many would consider restrictive. When he was formally introduced to Clara, Henry approached slowly, ensuring he would not startle her. "Hello, Princess Clara," he said in a calm and gentle tone. "My name is Henry. I have come from a distant planet to learn about your world and meet its people. I hope it is all right if we speak for a while." His voice carried warmth and respect, without the arrogance or authority that many beings displayed when meeting royalty. Clara paused, uncertain at first. She had grown accustomed to visitors who either ignored her or treated her as fragile. Many people looked at her disability and assumed she was incapable of meaningful thought or contribution. Henry's tone, however, suggested the opposite, that he wanted to listen, learn, and treat her as an equal. Clara's initial hesitation gave way to cautious curiosity. She could sense that Henry did not act afraid of her blindness or her weak leg. He did not raise his voice unnecessarily, did not rush her responses, and did not recoil at her movements. Instead, his posture was open and calm, and his gestures were deliberate and gentle. For the first time in her life, Clara felt safe in the presence of a stranger. Her pulse, which often quickened in moments of uncertainty or fear, remained steady. She realized she could speak without immediately being judged, and she began to relax. Henry, aware of her initial hesitation, spoke softly and patiently. "I have heard much about Viridia and its people, Princess," he said. "But I would like to hear about your experiences. What do you enjoy learning? What are the things that make you curious?" Clara listened, feeling a growing sense of trust. His words carried no expectation, no judgment, only genuine interest. She hesitated briefly, unsure if she could respond meaningfully, but something in his sincerity encouraged her. Slowly, she began to describe her favorite subjects: the history of Viridia, the science of energy crystals, and the patterns of the stars above her world. Henry listened carefully, asking questions without interrupting, showing a keen interest in her thoughts. Over the following days, Henry visited Clara regularly. Each time, he spoke gently, allowing her to set the pace of their interactions. He asked about her ideas, her observations, and her dreams. He never acted as though her blindness or weak leg made her less capable. Instead, he focused on her mind, her curiosity, and her unique perspective. Clara began to look forward to his visits, realizing that his presence was different from anyone else she had met. He did not treat her as an object to protect, nor as someone to pity. He treated her as an intelligent, capable individual, worthy of respect and attention. Henry also took the time to observe Clara in her environment. He noticed the way she moved through the palace, how she used her hands and other senses to compensate for her blindness, and how she managed her weak leg. He recognized the careful strategies she had developed to navigate spaces independently, despite the limitations imposed by her body and by those around her. Rather than trying to change her immediately, he praised her resourcefulness and offered guidance only when she requested it. His approach was one of patience and support, never control. One afternoon, Henry brought small tools and devices from his ship, designed to assist with navigation and mobility. He demonstrated how Clara could use them safely but never imposed their use. "You can try this if you want," he said, holding the device in his hands. "But only if you feel comfortable. There is no pressure. It is here to help, not to replace your own abilities." Clara examined the device carefully, feeling the texture and weight, and realized that it could extend her independence. Yet she also appreciated that Henry respected her choice to accept it or leave it. His respect for her autonomy strengthened her trust and admiration. As their interactions continued, Clara began to open up about her feelings. She spoke of her isolation, the way other aliens avoided her, and the loneliness she had felt even in the midst of a crowded palace. Henry listened attentively, never interrupting or dismissing her emotions. He validated her experiences while gently offering perspective. "It is unfair that others have ignored you," he said. "But your value is not measured by their judgment. You have intelligence, courage, and curiosity, qualities that no one can take away. I see that and I believe it matters." Clara felt a warmth and relief she had rarely experienced. Someone had recognized her worth without pity, without fear, and without expectation. Henry also encouraged Clara to explore small sections of the palace independently. He guided her verbally, offering detailed descriptions of the space and gentle advice for movement, but he never forced her to act. "You can take your time," he said. "Feel the floor beneath your feet, listen to the echoes, and move as you feel safe. I will be here if you need help, but you are in control." Clara discovered that with his guidance, she could navigate areas she had previously avoided. Each small success boosted her confidence, reinforcing the trust she had placed in him. The human's presence began to change Clara's perspective on others as well. She realized that not all beings were dismissive, fearful, or unkind. There were those who could appreciate intelligence, curiosity, and courage, even when the body had limitations. Henry became a living example of respect, patience, and genuine care. His behavior contrasted sharply with the reactions of the palace staff, tutors, and visiting dignitaries, who often saw her as weak or fragile. Through his actions, Clara began to understand that trust, patience, and empathy could lead to meaningful connection and personal growth. Over weeks, Clara's confidence grew. She began to move more freely within her chambers, explore new corridors, and attempt tasks she had previously considered impossible. Henry remained nearby, offering support when requested but never taking control. His belief in her abilities reinforced her sense of agency. She realized that her mind and determination could overcome many of the obstacles she faced, and that her disabilities did not define her worth or potential. She began to see herself as capable, intelligent, and deserving of respect. Their interactions also revealed Clara's sharp intellect and creativity. She could recall details of Viridia's history, describe patterns of energy crystals with precision, and analyze complex problems with insight. Henry encouraged her to share these observations, asking thoughtful questions and engaging in discussion. He never interrupted or corrected her unnecessarily, but instead allowed her to explore ideas fully. Clara discovered the joy of being heard, of being understood, and of having her thoughts valued. This sense of validation was transformative, nurturing both her mind and her spirit. Henry's influence extended beyond guidance and conversation. He introduced Clara to concepts and tools from human technology that allowed her to engage more fully with her environment. He demonstrated adaptive devices that enhanced mobility and spatial awareness, but always emphasized that she had the choice to use them or not. His approach highlighted autonomy and independence rather than dependency. Clara embraced these tools gradually, recognizing their utility while maintaining her sense of self. She learned that support did not mean surrendering control, and that guidance could coexist with independence. Through these shared experiences, a bond formed between them. Clara began to admire Henry not only for his kindness and intelligence but for his consistent respect of her autonomy. She realized that he treated her as an equal, someone worthy of trust, rather than as an object of pity or curiosity. This realization was profound. She had lived in a world where most people judged her by her disabilities, and now she encountered a being who saw her abilities, her mind, and her potential. Her admiration grew quietly, forming the foundation for a relationship built on trust, respect, and shared experience. The palace staff and other observers began to notice the changes in Clara as well. She moved with more confidence, engaged in conversation with greater ease, and explored her environment in ways previously unthinkable. Henry's influence had provided not only practical guidance but also an example of empathy, patience, and respect. Even those who had dismissed her abilities began to reconsider their assumptions, recognizing that a human, through careful attention and genuine care, could unlock the potential of someone previously underestimated. Through patient interaction, encouragement, and respect, Henry had accomplished what few had thought possible. Clara's confidence grew steadily, and her sense of independence blossomed. She realized that her body's limitations did not define her value. Instead, intelligence, resilience, curiosity, and the ability to learn were the true measures of worth. Henry had demonstrated that humans could foster growth and trust not through force, domination, or pity, but through patience, respect, and understanding. Clara's perception of humans, and perhaps of the galaxy, was forever changed. By the end of several months, Clara moved through her chambers and parts of the palace with confidence and purpose. Henry continued to be a steady presence, offering guidance without imposing, encouragement without expectation, and understanding without judgment. Clara felt a deep sense of gratitude and admiration. She had discovered a companion, mentor, and friend who valued her as an equal, who recognized her abilities, and who inspired her to grow beyond the limitations imposed by her body or by society. Henry's arrival had transformed her world. Clara's isolation began to lift, replaced by curiosity, confidence, and a willingness to engage with the world. She realized that trust and empathy could bridge gaps that others thought insurmountable. Her respect and admiration for Henry grew daily, rooted in his patience, intelligence, and unwavering care. Through his presence, she discovered a new vision of possibility, a life not limited by disability, but expanded by understanding, guidance, and genuine companionship. Henry continued to visit Princess Clara regularly, his presence a steady and calming influence in her life. Each day, he observed carefully how she moved through the palace and offered gentle guidance without ever pushing her to do more than she felt comfortable with. The palace halls were long and filled with subtle sounds that Clara had learned to interpret over the years: the distant footsteps of servants, the faint hum of energy flowing through the walls, and the soft echo of her own movements. Henry listened with attention, speaking softly to ensure she never felt rushed or pressured. "Take your time, Clara," he would say, his voice calm and patient. "Feel the space around you and move when you are ready. I am here to help if you need me, but you are in control." For Clara, this approach was new and remarkable. Most people had always hurried her or guided her hands and legs with an assumption that she could not manage on her own. Their help often made her feel small, incapable, or fragile. But Henry's patience and respect allowed her to move at her own pace, and each small success became a source of pride and confidence. She began to understand that guidance did not have to mean control and that assistance could exist without taking away autonomy. She started looking forward to their time together, not out of obligation, but because she felt valued and respected. Henry introduced simple exercises to help Clara move safely and build strength in her leg. He did not insist she complete them perfectly or at all, but demonstrated the movements gently, letting her decide when and how to try. "If you feel comfortable, you can try to step forward," he said one day, placing a hand near hers for optional support. "But only if you want to. There is no rush." Clara felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. With his calm encouragement, she took a small step, then another, and felt a wave of accomplishment. Henry smiled warmly, not as someone who controlled her, but as a friend who celebrated her efforts. Over time, their interactions deepened. Henry did not limit their time together to physical exercises. He engaged her mind as well. He asked about her interests, listened to her descriptions of the palace, the alien flora, and the history of Viridia. He never interrupted or corrected unnecessarily, instead encouraging her to explore ideas fully. Clara found herself sharing thoughts and observations she had never voiced before. She spoke about the patterns she noticed in the palace, the sounds of the city, and her imagination of distant worlds. Henry responded with genuine curiosity, asking questions that made her think and reflect. His respect for her intelligence and perspective created a bond that was rare in her life. Clara's trust in Henry grew slowly as it had to. She had learned over years of isolation that not everyone could be counted on to act with care. His consistent behavior, the patience, the gentle tone, the respect for her choices, gradually erased her hesitation. She began to anticipate his visits with a quiet joy. Even small moments, like moving across a room with minimal assistance or sharing a story about her interests, became milestones of confidence. She discovered that she could rely on him not only for physical guidance but also for companionship that honored her autonomy. One afternoon, Henry brought a small device from his ship designed to help Clara navigate the palace corridors more safely. He explained it carefully, letting her feel it and understand its function. "You can use it if you want," he said gently, "but only if you feel ready. It is here to support you, not to replace your abilities." Clara touched the device, feeling its weight and texture, and appreciated his approach. She realized that his guidance allowed her to gain independence without pressure or obligation. Henry's respect for her choices reinforced her trust and deepened her admiration for him. Their sessions often included exploring parts of the palace that Clara had previously avoided. Henry guided her verbally, describing obstacles, distances, and textures so she could move confidently. "There is a railing along this corridor," he said one day. "You can touch it if you want or feel your way along the wall. Move at your own speed." Clara appreciated that he never insisted on a single method. She experimented cautiously, sometimes using the railing, sometimes relying on memory and intuition. Each successful movement reinforced her independence and highlighted the strength she had cultivated over years of adaptation. Clara's mind flourished alongside her physical progress. Henry encouraged her to observe, analyze, and question the world around her. He asked about patterns in the palace's energy flow, the sounds of creatures outside the palace walls, and the function of the crystal towers. Clara's explanations were thoughtful and detailed. She realized that her experiences, once seen as limitations, had sharpened her senses and given her a unique perspective. Henry's interest and validation made her feel capable and respected, which encouraged her to continue exploring both her surroundings and her own abilities. As days turned into weeks, Clara began to anticipate new challenges with confidence rather than fear. She learned that trying something new did not have to mean failure. She could experiment, make mistakes, and still be valued. Henry's presence allowed her to approach risks with safety and encouragement rather than judgment or criticism. For example, when learning to navigate a wider hallway, she misstepped and nearly stumbled. Henry's hand was there immediately, steady and calm, but he did not scold or correct harshly. Instead, he said softly, "That was a good try. Let's see if we can do it again at your pace." Clara smiled and tried again, realizing that mistakes were part of learning, not a reason for shame. Their companionship also included moments of shared observation and discovery. Henry would describe the colors of the twin suns, the shimmer of the floating walkways, and the subtle glow of the crystal towers, details Clara could not see but could imagine. She learned to connect these descriptions with sounds, textures, and vibrations she perceived. Together, they created a world where Clara could experience her environment more fully, relying on both her senses and Henry's guidance. These shared experiences fostered joy, creativity, and a sense of exploration that Clara had never felt before. Henry's respect extended to her personal choices. He never dictated her schedule, her methods, or her decisions. "You can choose what we do today," he said one morning. "If you want to practice walking, we can do that. If you want to sit and talk about the stars, we can do that instead." Clara appreciated the freedom he offered. She realized that companionship did not have to mean control or expectation. It could mean support, patience, and the freedom to choose. This understanding was transformative for her, reshaping how she saw herself and how she interacted with others. Clara's trust in Henry became so strong that she began to confide in him about her feelings of isolation, her frustrations with the palace, and her hopes for the future. Henry listened without judgment, offering empathy and encouragement. "It is understandable to feel lonely," he said one day. "But your value is not diminished by the way others treat you. You have courage, intelligence, and creativity, qualities that make you remarkable. I see them and I want you to see them too." Clara felt a deep warmth in his words. For the first time, someone had recognized her worth not as a fragile princess, but as a capable and intelligent individual. Through these interactions, Clara's confidence blossomed. She began to walk more steadily, navigate longer corridors, and explore previously restricted areas. She experimented with mobility aids Henry introduced, discovering methods that increased her independence. Henry's encouragement was always measured, never demanding, and he celebrated her successes without making her feel pressured. This approach fostered both physical and emotional growth, giving Clara the courage to try new things while knowing she was supported. Their bond deepened over shared stories and learning. Henry spoke of his home planet, humans, and the ways his people solved problems and explored worlds. Clara asked questions, listened intently, and offered her own insights. Through these conversations, she discovered that intelligence, kindness, and creativity were qualities that transcended species. She began to admire Henry not just for his guidance, but for his values, patience, respect, and empathy. These qualities, she realized, were as important as any skill or strength, shaping the way people could inspire and support one another. Henry also encouraged Clara to engage in activities she had previously avoided due to fear or uncertainty. Together, they explored small gardens within the palace grounds, touched alien plants, and listened to the calls of creatures outside the walls. Clara learned to interpret textures, scents, and sounds to understand her surroundings. Each successful experience reinforced her independence, and Henry's calm presence made exploration enjoyable rather than stressful. She began to look forward to these adventures, discovering joy in movement, observation, and learning. Over time, Clara's emotional state improved alongside her physical abilities. She felt less lonely, more capable, and increasingly confident in her ability to interact with the world. Henry's presence provided both companionship and mentorship, teaching her that trust and patience could overcome isolation and fear. Clara realized that genuine connection did not require pity or sympathy. It required respect, understanding, and consistent care. She began to internalize these lessons, feeling empowered to navigate both her environment and her relationships with confidence. Henry's influence extended beyond practical guidance. He modeled how to approach challenges thoughtfully, remain calm in uncertain situations, and value others for their abilities rather than their limitations. Clara absorbed these lessons naturally, applying them in her own interactions with the palace staff and tutors. She began to assert herself gently, expressing preferences and making choices she had previously deferred. Her voice, once hesitant and uncertain, grew stronger and more confident under Henry's consistent encouragement. By the end of several months, Clara had transformed in ways both visible and unseen. She could move more independently, explore her surroundings with confidence, and navigate previously intimidating spaces. More importantly, she had developed a sense of self-worth and trust in others. Henry had shown her that companionship could exist without judgment, guidance could exist without control, and respect could inspire growth and confidence. Clara realized that she was capable, intelligent, and deserving of attention and care. She no longer felt entirely alone, and she understood that human qualities, patience, empathy, and respect, could foster profound trust and connection. Through these months of patient guidance, shared experiences, and gentle encouragement, Clara and Henry forged a bond of trust and mutual respect. Clara's initial caution gradually gave way to comfort, and comfort gave way to curiosity, joy, and a willingness to try new things. She felt supported yet independent, respected yet encouraged, and for the first time truly seen. Their relationship demonstrated the power of patience, understanding, and empathy in creating trust and connection across differences of species, ability, and experience. Clara's trust in Henry was not blind. It was earned through consistent kindness, patience, and respect. Each interaction reinforced the idea that guidance did not require control, that support did not imply weakness, and that autonomy could coexist with companionship. By treating her as an equal and allowing her to make her own choices, Henry helped Clara discover her own strength, resilience, and potential. With Henry's continued guidance, Clara began to navigate more of the palace on her own. Every step she took was a mix of caution, curiosity, and growing confidence. Henry never rushed her, never insisted on perfect movements, and always allowed her to make her own decisions. "Take your time, Clara," he would say, his voice calm and reassuring. "Feel the space around you. Trust your steps. I will be here if you need me, but you are in control." His patience and respect were unlike anything she had ever experienced, and for the first time she began to feel capable of moving beyond her limitations. The palace, once intimidating and vast, became a space of discovery rather than fear. Clara explored corridors she had previously avoided, using her senses to detect textures, sounds, and vibrations. She learned to recognize the subtle echoes of footsteps, the hum of energy through the walls, and the patterns of air currents in each room. Henry encouraged her to move independently, providing gentle verbal guidance and occasional tactile support only when she requested it. This method allowed Clara to gain a sense of freedom and accomplishment, reinforcing the trust she had developed in him. Henry introduced simple tools and adaptive devices to help Clara navigate more effectively. Each tool was explained thoroughly, allowing her to understand how it worked and how it could support her without limiting her independence. "You can use this to help you move across the hallway," he said one afternoon, handing her a lightweight cane designed for balance. "But only if you feel comfortable. You do not have to use it all the time. It is here to help, not to control you." Clara carefully examined the cane, feeling its weight and balance. She realized that these tools could extend her independence while still giving her the freedom to choose how to use them. Through consistent practice and encouragement, Clara's confidence grew steadily. She learned to take longer steps, navigate staircases, and feel her way along unfamiliar corridors. Henry remained nearby, his presence supportive but never overbearing. Each successful movement brought a sense of pride and empowerment, reinforcing her belief in her abilities. The palace that had once felt like a prison now seemed like a place she could explore and understand on her own terms. Clara also discovered new ways to adapt to her surroundings. She learned to identify objects and obstacles by touch and sound, using her heightened awareness to navigate independently. For example, she memorized the locations of doors, windows, and furniture, allowing her to move confidently without constant guidance. She could detect subtle differences in floor textures and vibrations, which helped her understand distances and spatial arrangements. With each adaptation, her confidence increased, and she felt more in control of her environment. Henry encouraged her to challenge herself gradually. "Try walking down this corridor by yourself," he suggested one morning. "Take your time and use whatever methods feel safe. I will be here, but you can move at your pace." Clara hesitated at first, but the trust she had built in him gave her courage. She took a slow, deliberate step, then another, feeling the floor beneath her and listening to the echoes of her movements. Step by step, she moved across the corridor, her heart swelling with pride. Henry's calm and encouraging words reinforced her sense of achievement rather than overshadowing it. The tools and techniques Henry introduced allowed Clara to experience a level of independence she had never imagined. She began to explore the palace gardens, feeling the textures of alien plants and the soft vibrations of the ground beneath her feet. Henry described the colors, shapes, and movements she could not see, helping her create mental images of her surroundings. Together, they combined her tactile and auditory experiences with his descriptions, creating a vivid understanding of the world around her. Clara felt exhilarated by these experiences, discovering that she could engage with her environment fully and safely. As Clara's physical confidence increased, so did her mental and emotional confidence. She began to trust her own judgment, realizing that she could navigate challenges without constant reliance on others. Henry continued to guide her, but he always emphasized her autonomy. "You are capable of more than you realize," he said gently. "Every step you take on your own proves that you have strength, skill, and intelligence. Trust yourself as much as I trust you." Clara absorbed his words, allowing them to reinforce the inner confidence that had been growing through months of careful practice and patient guidance. Henry also taught Clara strategies for problem-solving and spatial awareness. He encouraged her to anticipate obstacles, plan her movements, and use her senses creatively to compensate for what she could not see. "Listen to the echoes, feel the vibrations, and notice patterns," he advised. "Your awareness is a powerful tool. Use it to understand your environment and make safe choices." Clara practiced these strategies daily, gradually mastering ways to move safely and confidently through even the most complex areas of the palace. She discovered that her disability did not prevent her from being independent. It merely required adaptation, creativity, and patience. Their time together included moments of exploration, learning, and shared observation. Henry described the twin suns, the crystal towers, and the distant floating platforms that stretched across the city. Clara imagined their appearance through his words, connecting his descriptions with her tactile and auditory perceptions. She began to form a detailed mental map of the palace and surrounding areas, which allowed her to navigate independently with increasing skill. Henry's guidance expanded her understanding, while her own determination and intelligence allowed her to apply it practically. Clara's admiration for Henry grew steadily. She appreciated not only his guidance but also his character, the patience, respect, and care he consistently demonstrated. He treated her as an equal, acknowledged her abilities, and encouraged her independence. She realized that his approach was different from anyone else she had known. Most people had either pitted her or treated her as fragile. Henry treated her as capable and intelligent, recognizing the value of her mind and her efforts rather than focusing on her limitations. Their shared experiences fostered a deep bond of trust and mutual respect. Clara began to look forward to their time together, not only for the physical guidance but also for the conversations, discoveries, and moments of connection. She realized that companionship could be nurturing and empowering, rather than restrictive or judgmental. With Henry she could explore, learn, and grow without fear of being criticized or controlled. His consistent respect and encouragement gave her the confidence to take risks, try new techniques, and test her limits safely. Clara's independence also inspired her to attempt tasks she had previously avoided. She practiced moving through staircases, opening doors independently, and exploring areas of the palace that had once felt intimidating. Each success reinforced her belief in her capabilities and strengthened her sense of autonomy. Henry remained nearby, ready to assist if necessary, but he allowed her to take the lead in every action. This balance of support and freedom was essential to her growth, fostering both physical skill and emotional resilience. As months passed, Clara's achievements became increasingly significant. She could navigate long corridors, manage changes in elevation, and interact with her environment with a sense of confidence she had never experienced before. She applied the strategies Henry had taught her, listening carefully, using tactile feedback, and relying on memory and intuition to move safely and independently. Her sense of self-worth grew alongside her physical abilities, creating a feedback loop of confidence, curiosity, and achievement. Henry encouraged Clara to reflect on her progress and recognize her accomplishments. "Look at how far you've come," he said one day, his voice warm and encouraging. "Every step you take, every new skill you learn, shows your strength and determination. You have grown so much, and it is because you trusted yourself and worked hard. I am proud of you, but even more, you should be proud of yourself." Clara felt a deep sense of pride and gratitude. For the first time, she truly understood that her growth was her own, guided by care but not controlled by it. Their time together also included playful exploration and experimentation. Henry suggested navigating obstacle courses, exploring the palace gardens, or learning new techniques for movement. Clara approached these challenges with excitement rather than fear, knowing that Henry's guidance would provide safety without restricting her autonomy. These activities strengthened her coordination, balance, and awareness while reinforcing the lessons of trust, patience, and self-confidence she had learned over the months. Clara's trust in Henry extended beyond physical guidance. She confided in him about her feelings of isolation, frustration, and the desire to be seen as capable and intelligent. Henry listened attentively, validating her experiences and offering encouragement without judgment. "It is understandable to feel lonely or frustrated," he said gently. "But your value is not determined by others' opinions. You are intelligent, creative, and capable. Trust in yourself as much as I trust in you." Clara felt deeply understood, and this emotional support became as important as the physical guidance he provided. Through these experiences, Clara realized that independence was not just about movement, it was about choice, confidence, and self-respect. Henry's patient guidance allowed her to take ownership of her abilities, adapt to her surroundings, and grow in ways that were meaningful to her. She began to feel capable, empowered, and motivated to continue learning and exploring. Her relationship with Henry demonstrated that trust, respect, and empathy could unlock potential in ways that pity, control, or fear never could. By the end of their months together, Clara had transformed. She could navigate the palace independently, use tools to assist her, and engage with her environment with confidence. More importantly, she had gained emotional strength, self-trust, and admiration for Henry, whose guidance had shown her that care, patience, and respect could enable growth and independence. Clara's confidence and competence became evident to others, and the bond between her and Henry remained strong, rooted in trust, respect, and shared experiences. Clara had come a long way since Henry first arrived on Viridia. The once timid and cautious princess, who had been born blind and with a weak leg, now moved through the palace with confidence and purpose. Her independence had grown steadily, nurtured by months of careful guidance, patient teaching, and gentle encouragement. The palace staff and other aliens who had previously avoided her began to notice the transformation. Whispers spread through the corridors about the young princess who now navigated spaces on her own, who made decisions without hesitation, and who carried herself with quiet dignity and assurance. Henry continued to support Clara, though his role had shifted from constant guidance to respectful companionship. He observed from a distance as she explored rooms, managed obstacles, and interacted with the palace staff. When she needed help, he was always there, ready to offer support, but he never imposed himself. Clara had learned to trust her own abilities and judgment, and Henry's patient approach had enabled her to grow independently. Their bond had strengthened, grounded in trust, respect, and genuine care. It was a relationship built on equality rather than control, one that demonstrated the power of empathy and patience. The alien court, initially skeptical of human methods, was astonished by Clara's progress. Many had assumed that her disabilities would limit her contributions, that she would remain dependent, or that she could not thrive in the demanding environment of the palace. Yet Clara proved them wrong. She navigated the halls, engaged in discussions with staff, and participated in palace activities with skill and confidence. The aliens were amazed at her courage and capability. Her determination, combined with the steady guidance and respect she had received from Henry, allowed her to achieve what many had deemed impossible. Clara's achievements inspired those around her. Younger members of the palace began to look to her as a role model, seeing that perseverance, intelligence, and adaptability could overcome perceived limitations. Staff members who had once treated her with unnecessary caution or distance began to recognize her competence and adjusted their behavior accordingly. The palace itself, once a place of isolation and fear for her, became a realm of exploration, learning, and achievement. Clara moved freely, interacted confidently, and engaged with her world in ways that demonstrated both courage and wisdom. Henry observed these changes with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the growth had come from Clara herself. He had offered guidance, patience, and support, but the true transformation was her own. She had taken the lessons of independence, resilience, and trust and applied them to every aspect of her life. His role had been to create an environment where she could thrive, and she had embraced the opportunity fully. Watching her navigate spaces with confidence, make decisions on her own, and face challenges without fear was a source of pride and affirmation for him. The bond between Henry and Clara deepened further through shared experiences and mutual understanding. They continued to explore the palace, the gardens, and the surrounding city together. Henry described sights she could not see, from the shimmer of the twin suns on crystal towers to the soft glow of distant platforms. Clara integrated these descriptions with her other senses, forming a vivid mental map of her world. Their conversations explored ideas, strategies, and plans for the future. Through these interactions, Clara developed not only physical independence but also mental and emotional strength. Other humans and visitors from distant worlds began to hear of Clara's progress and Henry's methods. Stories spread of a princess who, once considered fragile and helpless, had gained independence through patience, guidance, and mutual respect. Henry's approach became a model for human-alien interaction, demonstrating that empathy, care, and consistent respect could foster growth, loyalty, and achievement. Unlike coercion, threats, or domination, these qualities inspired lasting trust and collaboration. Clara's success became an example that resonated throughout the galaxy. Clara herself reflected on her journey, recognizing the profound impact of Henry's support. She realized that his guidance had empowered her to discover her own strengths, to trust her judgment, and to embrace challenges with courage. He had never treated her as fragile, weak, or unworthy. Instead, he had consistently recognized her intelligence, creativity, and capability. Clara felt deep gratitude and admiration, understanding that trust, respect, and care could inspire remarkable growth. She had learned that independence was not about moving alone, but about making choices, building confidence, and forming relationships based on mutual respect. The palace staff noticed a remarkable change in Clara's demeanor. She spoke clearly and confidently, expressed her needs and preferences, and engaged in problem-solving with ease. Her communication with other aliens became more assertive and effective, demonstrating that her abilities were not limited by her blindness or weak leg. Observers were struck by the transformation. The same young princess who had once been considered delicate and dependent now displayed strength, awareness, and a sense of agency. Her courage and capability inspired admiration, respect, and even a sense of awe. Henry and Clara continued to collaborate, each learning from the other. He learned about Viridia's culture, history, and unique challenges, while Clara gained insights into human methods of problem-solving, adaptability, and empathy. Their interactions reinforced the idea that growth and learning are most effective when respect and understanding are mutual. They celebrated small victories, learned from setbacks, and encouraged each other through challenges. The partnership they formed exemplified cooperation across differences, showing that patience, care, and empathy could bridge gaps between species, abilities, and perspectives. Clara's independence extended beyond navigation and physical capability. She became more confident in social interactions, offering advice and insight to staff and visitors. Her opinions were respected, her contributions valued, and her presence appreciated. The skills she had developed with Henry's support, observation, adaptability, problem-solving, and resilience, allowed her to engage with the world confidently and effectively. She discovered that true strength comes not from raw power but from awareness, persistence, and the ability to learn and adapt. The aliens who once doubted Clara's abilities were amazed by her accomplishments. They witnessed her move through the palace with assurance, communicate effectively, and participate in decision-making. Her courage and determination defied expectations. Many realized that limitations, whether physical or otherwise, do not define potential. Clara's independence and achievements became a living example of how patience, empathy, and guidance could unlock hidden strengths. Henry's human approach, emphasizing respect and care, inspired admiration and reflection among those who observed her progress. Clara and Henry's bond was now unshakable. Built on trust, mutual respect, and genuine care, it had grown beyond mere guidance or mentorship. They had become companions, partners in learning, and allies in discovery. Their relationship demonstrated that empathy, patience, and consistent support could foster loyalty, confidence, and personal growth. Clara's independence and strength were a testament to this approach. She had learned to navigate challenges with courage, make informed choices, and trust herself and others. Throughout the galaxy, stories of Clara's journey and Henry's guidance began to spread. Leaders, scholars, and explorers noted the profound effects of empathy and respect in fostering trust and growth. The story became a model for cross-species cooperation, showing that human qualities, patience, understanding, and care, could inspire excellence, loyalty, and greatness. Clara's accomplishments served as a reminder that true power lies not in domination or force, but in the ability to nurture, respect, and enable others to reach their potential. Clara herself felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had gained independence, confidence, and self-trust. She had navigated challenges that once seemed impossible and discovered that her abilities were far greater than she had believed. Her relationship with Henry had transformed her life, providing not only physical guidance but emotional support, validation, and inspiration. She admired his patience, respect, and empathy, understanding that these qualities had allowed her to flourish. As the years progressed, Clara continued to demonstrate her independence and competence. She engaged in palace affairs, explored the surrounding lands, and mentored younger members of her community. Her story became an inspiration, showing that challenges could be overcome through perseverance, trust, and care. Henry remained a close companion and advisor, offering guidance when needed but always respecting her autonomy. Together, they exemplified the power of partnership based on trust, mutual respect, and empathy. The alien society began to rethink its assumptions about disability, ability, and potential. Clara's achievements challenged preconceived notions and inspired a cultural shift. Observers recognized that limitations do not define a being's value or potential. With guidance rooted in patience, respect, and care, individuals could achieve remarkable growth, independence, and influence. Clara's life became a symbol of resilience, courage, and the transformative power of human empathy. Henry and Clara's story reached far beyond Viridia. Messages traveled across star systems, recounting the young princess who gained independence with the support of a human who valued her as an equal. Leaders, educators, and explorers reflected on the lessons embedded in her journey, that guidance should empower, that care should inspire, and that trust and respect can unlock hidden potential. Clara's success was proof that humans could foster loyalty, courage, and greatness not through power, but through empathy and understanding. Clara's journey had a lasting impact on herself, Henry, the palace, and the wider galaxy. She had gained confidence, independence, and the ability to navigate challenges. Henry had witnessed the transformative power of patience and respect. The alien society had learned to value capability and courage over assumptions about disability. The story of their bond and Clara's achievements became a testament to what can be accomplished when humans approach others with empathy, care, and consistent respect. In the end, Clara and Henry's relationship remained strong, defined by mutual admiration and trust. Clara had discovered her own strength, and Henry had demonstrated the power of guiding with patience and empathy rather than force. The galaxy observed their partnership and realized that human qualities, kindness, respect, and care, could inspire loyalty, confidence, and greatness. Clara's independence and courage became a lasting example of what could be achieved when someone is believed in, supported, and respected. The palace, once a place of isolation and uncertainty for Clara, had transformed into a space of empowerment and achievement. Her daily movements were confident, her interactions thoughtful and assertive, and her contributions meaningful. Henry's patient guidance had enabled her to see her own potential, to trust her abilities, and to embrace her life fully. Clara's story spread across worlds as an example of hope, courage, and the remarkable outcomes of empathy and respect. Through the combined efforts of Clara and Henry, the galaxy learned a vital lesson. Power is not the measure of influence, and control does not guarantee loyalty. True strength lies in understanding, patience, and care. By nurturing others, respecting their abilities, and guiding them without imposing, humans could inspire remarkable achievement, independence, and trust. Clara's life became a symbol of this principle, showing that empathy could create courage, loyalty, and greatness across any star system.